Okay, hi everybody. So sorry for the delay. We were waiting for Steve Harvey to come announce our game, Survey Says. Instead, I'm standing in as a substitute. So I'm Katie Garbarini, and I'm the host of our Survey Says game. We're so happy to have you guys here. So our game is Survey Says, Your Data Matters, presented by the Ladder, GASR, and NHS. So here are our objectives for today. We'd like for you all to learn about different research opportunities for the Angelman syndrome community, identify differences between research opportunities, understand how participating in research makes an impact, and to build confidence in navigating research opportunities in Angelman syndrome. All right, so let's meet the Angelman research team. This team works together to better understand and develop treatments for Angelman syndrome. So we have Nikki Armstrong from the Global Angelman Registry. We have Dr. Wenhan Tan from the Angelman National Institute, Dr. Ann Wheeler from the Ladder Database, Dr. Sarah Potter from the Ladder Database, Dr. Robert Komorowski from Ionis, and we have Dr. Kim Goodspeed from Ultragenics. Thanks. Thank you so much to our beautiful studio audience. I thought about having an applause sign, but okay. It's not moving forward. Will you move me forward? Oh, okay. Okay, our first question. How can you participate in research from the comfort of your home? Survey says the Global Angelman Registry. So I'm going to hand it over to Nikki. Do you want to come over here? Wait, where do you think? Welcome, Nikki. Nikki wanted to run in and high five people, and we figured for safety purposes, we would not do that. Okay.
It would have been fun. Hi, everyone. I'm Nikki Armstrong. I am a genetic counselor by training, and I am working with the Global Angelman Syndrome Registry as the U.S. representative. It's the green one?
Big green.
Okay. I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Global Angelman Syndrome Registry, which we also sometimes abbreviate GASR. So we'll be talking a little bit about that and how you can participate and how it all works. So what is the Global Angelman Syndrome Registry? It's a caregiver, so that means mostly parent report registry for individuals living with Angelman syndrome. It's completely web-based, so you do it from your laptop or your smartphone, and it's international. At this point, we have more than 90 individuals from more than 90 countries participating. So how do you participate? Well, the first step is that you register. So you go to the website, angelmanregistry.info, and you enter your registration information. So that's information about the parent caregiver and also information about the individual living with Angelman syndrome. It's a really quick, it literally takes less than a minute to register. And once you register, you provide your email address and you receive a link to then consent. So once you get that in your email, you go and you watch a video that talks all about what participation entails. And you get to make choices about how you want your information to be used. Do you want to be contacted if there are clinical trials in your area? Are you okay with your data being de-identified and shared with other researchers? So you make those choices. And then after that, you actually go into the registry itself and you complete surveys. So you provide data about your loved one and you can upload the genetic test report. So how much time does it take? Well, if you sat down and did all of it all at once, it takes about 2 hours. So it is a lot, and we understand that. However, you can do it a piece at a time. So most of the surveys are around 5 or 10 minutes to complete, and you can do them completely at your own pace. And that's only for the first time. So once you complete all of that information, you can come back at any point in the future to update things, and that only takes about 15 or 20 minutes. When should you get involved? Well, really the answer to that question is whenever you want to. I mean, there's no bad time to get involved other than if there's a medical crisis or something else really big going on in your life. This should not be a priority. But otherwise, we see families join at any point along the loved one with Angelman syndrome's life. So why is the Global Angelman Syndrome Registry important to Angelman syndrome research? Well, there's a couple of really key pieces. One is actually counting. So that first step where you enter the registration information allows us to find out where people living with Angelman syndrome are located. And that's really important for understanding where clinical trials are and also figuring out who we're missing, who's not getting diagnosed with Angelman syndrome, because we know that it should be pretty prevalent in all places. So if there aren't any individuals there, that means that we're missing people. It's also really accessible and flexible. So as long as you have, an internet connection and an email address, you can be in the registry. It's available in 7 languages. It meets all of the European standards for being involved in research. And so it's really flexible from that perspective, which is great because that means that we can get data on any individual who wants to participate living with Angelman syndrome. And that's important because everyone living with Angelman syndrome is different. Everyone's unique. And so the more people that we get data on, the better understanding we have on everything that can be part of Angelman syndrome. The other really key piece is this is parent caregiver data. No one knows the individuals living with Angelman syndrome better than their parents or caregivers. We need this parent caregiver data to really understand Angelman syndrome. And then lastly, the names and address information can be removed from the data, and the data can be really easily shared with researchers and combined with all the other data sets from all the other individuals who are up here today. So we use this data in lots of different ways. We've had researchers contact us about wanting to better understand sleep and behavior, the GI, stomach tract, and all of those pieces, the newborn. So these are some publications that have already come out, and then we have a number of other publications that are in progress. And then the other piece is that we get contacted by companies who are interested in thinking about clinical trials in Angelman syndrome to find out where families are located, because that's important when they're trying to decide where to have clinical trial sites. And that is all about the Global Angelman Syndrome Registry.
All right, let's welcome our next team member. Survey says the Angelman Natural History Study.
Hi, everyone. So thank you for coming and for your interest in the Angelman Syndrome Natural History Study. So this is the largest natural history study of Angelman Syndrome that we have, at least that we know of. And it's been running now for probably about 18 years. We have a booth out by the table. So please, if you're not already part of the study, we would love to have you. So oops, sorry. So the natural history study is basically an observational study that seeks to learn more about Angelman syndrome, all aspects of Angelman syndrome. So it comprises basically a virtual component. So we'll answer some questionnaires, forms online over Zoom, and we can arrange for that at a time that's convenient for you. And an in-person visit where we will be conducting actual assessments, for example, the Bailey skills of infant and toddler development. If you have heard, if you were at the previous session, you heard Dr. Sawani talk about the Bailey. So we would like to see more patients, more of you in the natural history study to get data on the Bailey. And that's really important because drug companies are using these data to determine whether or not their drugs can be approved by the FDA. So the level of effort required really just varies. For first visit, an online call for the forms probably takes about an hour-ish. For return visit, it's usually about half an hour to 45 minutes. But I would strongly encourage all of you who are not already part of our study to visit our booth. We have representatives from our team manning the booth throughout this conference. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, survey says the ladder database. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Ann Wheeler. I am the director of the ladder database. And I want to tell you a little bit about why we need a ladder database and what you can do to be involved to help this effort. Okay, so just in case any of you don't know what LADDER is, LADDER stands for Linking Angelman and Dup15q Databases for Expanded Research. And LADDER database is part of a broader network called the LADDER Learning Network that is made up of the data repository, as well as patients and caregivers, clinicians, and researchers who are all coming together to try to maximize our understanding of Angelman syndrome to be able to provide the best treatments and supports for individuals and their families. So what happens a lot of times in research and in rare disease research specifically is that, or maybe more prolifically, is that we have siloed data, right? So we end up with a registry that's collecting certain information. We end up with natural history study that's collecting certain information. We end up with clinics that are collecting certain information, and they're all siloed and not talking to each other. So the goal of LADDER is to help get all of this data to one place so we can maximize that information. And so what LADDER does is it takes in data sets from different places, from the natural history study, for example, from clinical trials, for example, from clinic sites, for example, and we put it all in one place. And then we basically try to clean that data, make it as harmonized as possible so that researchers, pharmaceutical companies, who are clinicians who are interested in answering a specific question about Angelman syndrome can have the most information at their fingertips. And we do this in a way that protects the privacy of the actual individuals who contribute the data, while also maximizing the amount of data that is shared. So we have several goals in doing this. One is to promote research in this area and give data sets to folks who are really going to advance the knowledge. We want to help with therapeutic development. So we provide data sets to the companies that are trying either in the process of developing a therapeutic or are in the process of clinical trials for the therapeutic so that they can understand the condition better and know what the natural history looks like. And then we're also using this data to help inform clinical practice. So the data that we get then gets transformed into summarized findings on specific domains that can then be used to help promote intervention development. So we have a secure portal for caregivers to sign up, and caregivers do need to sign up. And the reason we need you to sign up is we need you to tell us that it's okay that we have your child's data. And so we want parents to go in and you get to understand a broader perspective of what we're trying to do with LADDER, and then you give us permission to link data where we can for your individual with Angelman. So that's why we need you to do it. And then in return, we're trying to give back to the community by providing family-friendly reports that summarize the data that we do end up analyzing in ways that hopefully are understandable and usable for families. And then, of course, we're using this for clinical guidelines. So when you go in, you get a specific ID number. That ID number is what is used to help link data across different sites. You fill out this consent form, and then you can go back to the LADDER portal and see whether or not there's new surveys for you to complete or where your data is in the process. We also try to engage the community with social media campaigns and campaigns that target specific areas that we've heard are important to you all. So we may have things on social media that summarize what we found in the LADDER database, what parents have told us, or we may decide, okay, we want to ask you, what do you want us to be asking about these specific issues around? And so a couple examples of those are, we did a whole campaign around adult issues, and we've done campaigns around seizures as well, and also early experiences, so newborn to first year of life. So I think an important point here for everybody to know and to keep spreading the word, there is a difference between LADDER and GASR. We do similar things, but GASR is the patient registry. It is the Angelman Syndrome Patient Registry. You need to sign up for that to be counted so that we know where you are for clinical trials. Sign up for that to provide global information about Angelman syndrome around the world. Those are the important pieces that we need to know. LADDER is about taking that data and doing something with it. So we take all that data, we put it together with other data sources, and then we share it with external folks. So they are different. And so we do need you to sign up for both. We are working on ways to try to streamline this so that you don't have to sign up for both. But as of right now, you still need to sign up for both so that we can have your data, have your permission in both sets of data. Thank you.
Do you want to announce the bonus round?
Okay, before I announce the bonus round, I do want to say we do have a LADDER booth out there. We do have some studies to sign up for, so please come check us out. And now I will announce our bonus round, which is about data sharing and therapeutic development. So the big questions are, once we have this data and we pass it on to folks, what happens to it? So we'll let Sarah come and talk about the first step.
Thanks, Anne.
Next. All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Potter. I'm so glad to be here with you all. This is my second Angelman Syndrome Foundation conference, and I love it. All right. So as Anne mentioned, Ladder was developed to help maximize the potential of several data collection efforts being conducted in Angelman and Dup15q syndromes. And I'm going to focus really on the bottom part of this figure here, thinking about the research, therapeutic development, and clinical guidance. And so I'm going to dig in a little bit into how data is accessed and kind of tell you a little bit more about what's been done in the last couple of years. And so researchers can come to us and they can request this data. They have to fill out an application. They have to tell us what they're going to do, why they're going to do it, how it's going to benefit the community. And they're doing this for a variety of different reasons, as Anne mentioned. So that can be for preclinical explorations, for publications, presentations, grant preparations, figuring out how to design their clinical trials. So we've got a lot of different data access requests that have come in the last couple of years. Here's just a little bit more information about all of the data that are in Ladder. So we've got over 100 data sets, almost 16,000 variables, and this is about 7 months old. So there's more that's come in since then. So we've got tons and tons of data. We're always trying to get some more. And so as of Monday, we've had 38 data requests. 31 of those have been requesting Angelman syndrome specific data. 5 have come in for Dup15q, 2 have come in requesting both. Nearly half of these requests, I think about over 20, have come from folks in biotechnology or pharmaceutical companies. And they've been wanting to access the data to aid in clinical trial design or outcome measure determination. And so here I've got the purpose of the data access request. People can select more than one of these options, but you can see here that over 20 have selected outcome measure determination. So these data are really being used to help design these clinical trials to figure out how can we move this field forward? How can we have these trials for your loved ones? So these are just a few of the quotes that I pulled from folks who have submitted data access requests. I just thought it would be helpful to kind of see what people are saying. So we had Mike Sidorov, who submitted something and saying, our results will directly inform the design of upcoming clinical trials and thus provide immediate benefit to individuals with AS and their families. Sam Quigley, who presented at the research conference on, was that yesterday? Yeah. So he's the father of someone with Dup15q syndrome, and he's started Kicho Incorporation to help develop an ASO for Dup15q. So he recently submitted a data request and said he wanted to better understand patient needs, understand the quality of and gaps in existing patient data, and to support future clinical efforts. And that's what he's working very hard on. And then Rob here has submitted a couple of data access requests. And so they're really focused on how can we better tailor these assessments or help develop new assessments to better understand and better be able to assess folks with Angelman syndrome. All right. And so then what happens when these data are published or any data that's of interest to the community, especially if Ladder data has been used, is we develop these family-friendly reports. We've got a bunch of copies of these out at the Ladder booth, so come by. They're also all accessible on the Ladder website. So we try to sort of dissect this information, make it a little bit easier to understand and put these reports out for the community. So here's the examples of the reports that we've put out in the last few years on Angelman syndrome. We've got 3 reports that are in prep right now. So come talk to us at the Ladder booth. You can always email us at ladder@rti.org. Ladder2treatment.org is our website. I monitor the Ladder inbox, so I will respond to you as soon as I get your email. Questions are welcome anytime. What can we do for you? That's it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, for the next part of the bonus round. So this is what happens after the data heads out into their industry, into our partners in the therapeutic space. So I'd like to invite Dr. Rob Komorowski to come give us a few words from his perspective working in Ionis developing therapeutics.
Thanks, Katie, and hi, everybody. I'm Rob Komorowski. I work as a scientist at Ionis, and as has been mentioned, really have benefited a lot from using the data as part of the registry as well as the natural history study. So first and foremost, I just want to use the opportunity to thank all of you have participated in those studies. We understand they can be very time consuming and oftentimes require a lot of effort on your parts. And I just wanted to say it really is helpful in drug development, assay development, as well as outcome measure development. And I just wanted to give like a few examples of that. So when I first started working in the Angelman field, I worked a lot with EEGs. And we knew that there were these EEGs all over the place at all these different clinics. And so I spent a lot of my time bothering a lot of the clinicians, asking them, oh, can I have your EEGs? I want to understand more about, whether there are biomarkers there that we could use. And so I hate bothering doctors who have many more important things to do than respond to my emails. And so this process now has brought all of those EEGs into one place and has standardized them and made them much more easy to access for myself, as well as any others who are interested in looking at that data. And so that's just been a huge value to us. And then the other part is really, I know some people had asked, I think one of the families had asked, oh, I haven't been in a natural history study for a while. Can I come back? And that's some of the most valuable data. Seeing how patients progress over time is really going to be critical in understanding how our drugs are impacting the trajectory of the disease. And so that's why, we ask you to come back, for the natural history study year after year after year. That is some of the most valuable data. But that being said, there's so many good opportunities, even, through the registry, where a single, couple hours can really generate data that can be helpful for us. So I just wanted to say, thank you to everyone who's interested in and has participated in these studies in the past. And, if you haven't, certainly consider if it's right for you to do so. Okay. Thanks, Katie.
All right, let's welcome our last speaker, Dr. Kim Goodspeed, to give her perspective from her time working with Angelman patients and working at Ultragenyx. Come on down, Kim. Okay, great.
Thanks so much, Katie. So first off, thank you for letting me be on the panel today. I am new to Ultragenyx. So I'm a child neurologist by training. Neurodevelopmental disabilities was my specialty, and I was working in other rare diseases too, alongside our Angelman COE when I was in academia. And so first and foremost, I understand how much time it takes for you guys to fill out all these things. And you're like, oh my gosh, another survey that's asking me kind of the same questions in a very slightly different way. So it's really appreciated. The data is super valuable. But I also want to shout out to all of the people who organized these platforms for you guys to be able to participate in. As a PI who was starting stuff up for other rare diseases, I had so much admiration for this organization and all that this community has done. And you guys have been working at this for decades, and you are so far along, because now we can take that data and we know which outcome measures are going to be the most effective for us to use in a clinical trial, so we can get it right, hopefully, the first time and not have to reinvent the wheel, because we didn't like this measure or we didn't know how the Bailey was going to respond, for example. I know your kids get sick of doing the Bailey over and over and over again, but understanding that trajectory and how different kids, different, locations in the world, different ages, different genotypes respond on all of these different measures help us to design that best trial that asks the right questions, gets the right answers. And then on the back end, you're going to see in our talks this afternoon, I imagine, and you've probably seen some of this data already, but we can use that to understand how our drugs are working. So if we know what typically happens with standard of care that's been there for the last decade or so, we can then say, oh, well, we know when we see a change in this score, that's potentially meaningful, and we need to follow that up and confirm it in our next phase of trials. So it is incredibly valuable. Your time, I hope it feels worth it, because it's really making our jobs much more efficient on the drug development side. And again, huge shout out to these people who had that foresight years ago to get all this in place so that y'all were ready to go at launch when you had so many cool opportunities in the pipeline. So I will end with just saying, I was a neurodevelopmentalist in clinic. I was with families like you guys talking through, I only have symptomatic treatment for you. I only can treat your seizures. I can give you a medicine for behavior. I can give you another medicine for sleep. I can also send you to 5,000 different therapy appointments every week. So to be in this space and hear all this buzz and excitement over potentially true treatments for your disorder, like it's just really impactful and it's really moving. So.
Thank you so much, Kim. All right. So thank you so much thank you so much to the Angelman research team for participating in Survey Says. Do we have questions from our beautiful studio audience here in Sandusky, Ohio? I think we have a few minutes if folks have questions. You do have a question. Do you want to come to a mic, or maybe we can bring you a mic? I won't laugh into the mic, sorry. And I'll repeat the question. How much interest is there in adults with Angelman syndrome from a research perspective?
A ton. We do not have enough adults.
We need you guys, please.
You guys have
So
mics.
sign up.
You have mics. You don't need to shout. We have mics. You have mics.
I don't. Oh, it does work. Okay. Yes. Please, please, please. We
No
need.
shouting on Survey
We
Says.
want to know. We don't know enough about adults, so giving us your information helps us know more, so that we can help design interventions and treatments that are specific for adults. So please, 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 tell us about your experience.
Okay. I will.
And we have a booth for the natural history study. So please do sign up and we will make it work.
Yeah, I will add to that. I think we all need to remember this is a developmental disorder. So all the brain cells got probably to where they needed to be. They're just not talking to each other properly because of this missing gene. So I personally don't count adults out from potentially benefiting from a treatment. So I think that's really important, but we need to know, is there an increased risk of other adult comorbidities? What does that lifestyle look like for an adult with Angelman? What are the struggles you guys face? What do you care about? What would be a benefit for y'all? So all of these questions are super important. So please, if you have any interest in contributing data, it is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. Or say anyone with a non-deletion type, anyone under 2, or adults are really the big gaps in literature. And we really, really want to encourage those folks to participate.
Yeah, I was just going to add to that, in our current HALO study, we've enrolled adults in that study, and we're trying to compare that data to the natural history, and there's not a lot there. I think we're excited about some of the data, but it'd be great to have a better understanding of both, what we would expect in natural history for adults, but also like what's meaningful for adults or parents of adults with Angelman syndrome. It may be different than what would be meaningful from somebody with an infant. And so that's something I feel like we don't understand as well as we probably should at this point.
Yes.
Just one.
During the prior panel, one of the scientists brought up the idea that maybe you don't need UV3 throughout the life. You just need it maybe for a little bit during the in an early stage in your life, and that you don't need it later on in life. But like you said, you just mentioned that it was not a neurodegenerative disease; it's a developmental disease. So the question number one: are there these kinds of diseases where you only need it during development, and then during adult it's not necessary? Number two, if that's the case, do you think gene therapy is a good idea?
So I should repeat the question. So the question is that are there other diseases in which the key driver for that condition, be it UBE3A or another gene, is not needed through the whole life? It's really important during the critical window of development. And given that information, is gene therapy perhaps a better approach? How would you all respond? Yeah, go ahead.
Not a good idea.
Oh, is that not a good idea?
Yeah. So to the first question, I think animal data only takes you so far, right? Humans are not mice. And I think that there's a lot we don't know, but what we can see from, the data that's coming out of all the trials is that older individuals seem to be responding or having changes that we wouldn't have expected to see. Again, your natural history data is super helpful to start interpreting that. But, I think if that were the case, you'd only expect to see improvements in the very youngest of young. And I don't think that's what we're seeing. So I think that there is reason to challenge the dogma, to challenge the notion that in a developmental disorder, you have a very narrow window of potential intervention. And I think it's unfair to say we're going to make this assumption based on the mice and not give our human population a fair shot at seeing, as long as we think it's a reasonably safe option to try. The gene therapy question is a trickier question, I think. And I'm probably not the best person to answer that, but it would probably be better targeted at one of the guys that's developing gene therapies. But in general, I think you just have to approach each potential drug or therapeutic opportunity with that safety risk benefit profile in mind. Like, what do we think the potential risks are? What do we think the potential benefits are? And does that make sense?
Any other comments from the panel? You guys okay? Okay. Okay. Are there other questions from the studio audience? Okay. Okay. Thank you all so much for attending this session. Thank you so much to our panelists. I hope everybody has a great rest of their day here.
Thank you, Katie, for organizing this.